Hello everyone, coming back at y'all with another Commander Deck Tech video. This was as always voted on by my patrons, so if you want to get in on that, the link to my Patreon will be in the description box below. This time we're going to do Nicol Bolas the Ravager from M19. He is a pretty sweet flip planeswalker, which is kind of awesome considering the last core set we got was Magic Origins, which was also filled with those flip planeswalkers. He is 4 mana in Grixis colors for a 4/4 legendary Elder Dragon with flying, and whenever he enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card, which is pretty much it. He has an activated ability, but it doesn't really have anything to do with him as a creature. That's just what you have to pay in order to flip him. You can only do that at sorcery speed. So we're going to find a way to synergize with discarding cards. We can make our opponents do it, so we want to run things that are going to work out well with that whole mechanic. And there's some other deck strategies that we're going to incorporate into this deck, but for the most part, you're going to see a lot of fun stuff Nicol Bolas themed cards, because that's really what this deck is going to be. I made a deck like this before with the original Nicol Bolas from Legends, but I feel like this guy is a lot better because he's cheaper, you can get him out there, and you don't have to worry about any upkeep costs. Once you do actually flip him though, you get your typical Nicol Bolas, a lot of good Planeswalker loyalty abilities that are just good in Commander. His +2, draw 2 cards, can't complain too much about that. His -3 is going to deal 10 damage to a creature or a Planeswalker. Little disappointed this can't be a player, but that might be too powerful. His -4, you get to put a target creature or Planeswalker card from a graveyard on the battlefield under your control, which is pretty devastating. This is something that Nicol Bolas does pretty well, gaining control of your opponent's stuff, but you could of course do this with your own creatures and planeswalkers in your graveyard. And his ult is pretty devastating, like most Nicol Bolas ults. You're going to exile all but the bottom card of a target player's library, effectively taking them out of the game. So unless they can really do anything to win on their turn, they're done. While he's pretty good, we don't just want to make the deck around getting to that planeswalker form as quickly as possible. We want to synergize with the first Nicol Bolas, the Ravager. We can make each of our opponents discard a card, so immediately we're going to be thinking about cards like Waste Not, Liliana's Caress, Megrim, anything that we can do to set up for our Nicol Bolas play, make our opponents lose some life, gain some resources with Waste Not. It's a pretty good synergy there, but it's not strong enough on its own, so we need to have some other strategies here, which is why we're going to incorporate Nekosar and Nekosar-like cards, because we want to deal a lot more damage to our opponents, filling our deck with other things that are going to draw some cards like Windfall or Whispering Madness. Those are also going to force our opponents to discard a lot of cards as well, which is why we want to fool around with those Megrim cards anyway. Getting more damage off of our opponents drawing cards, you could also play Cataract Parasite, Underworld Dreams, as well as Spiteful Visions. These see a ton of play in Nekosar. I think they'll be just as good in this deck, and something that's going to work out really well. You're already forcing your opponents to discard a lot of cards. Throw in a Sire of Insanity. At the beginning of each end step, they're going to have to discard their hand. You will too, but it's definitely going to hurt them more if we also have a lot of those Waste Not cards out there. And of course, as I mentioned before, this is going to be a Nicol Bolas themed deck, so you're going to see some random cards in there like Augur of Bolas, Disciple of Bolas, just things that had to do with Bolas in any way, shape, or form. And of course, we do have the other 3 Nicol Bolas planeswalkers, the original planeswalker, the God Pharaoh, and the Deceiver. Like I said before, Nicol Bolas has some pretty powerful loyalty abilities. It doesn't really matter which one you go with. They all seem to have some massive impact on the game. And if you really want to go with on flavor choices, Sarkhan the Mad, since he was technically working for Bolas then, he's a pretty decent option. And you do play a decent dragon in Nicol Bolas, so why not? But that's pretty much the deck. It's extremely casual. You're going to see a lot of stuff that's just for fun. Cards like Slave of Bolas, even though it may not be super competitive, it does synergize. It has Bolas in the name. It's not the worst card ever. It's a better act of treason. Hour of Devastation, Torment of Hellfire may not be super powerful in the deck, but again, Nicol Bolas themed. Pretty cool. Anyway, let me know what you think about the deck, guys. I personally think he's a decent option if you want to go with some sort of Nekosar-like strategy. If you just want to punish your opponents by forcing them to discard cards, that's never really a bad direction to go with either. But anyway, you guys have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next video.